Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Aidan, and on this week's episode, with the launch of the Fodder Support Scheme and the current grass situation on farms, I'm joined by Teagasc Beef Specialist Aidan Maher and Grass Tin Manager John Maher. Aidan, the Fodder Support Scheme, which is welcomed by farmers, was launched last week. Can you tell me more about the scheme?
Yeah, well, the scheme was, as you say, was launched last week, Catherine, and it was really there to, want these farmers to have sufficient feed for the winter to avoid feed shortage and any issues with regards to animal welfare. And that was really brought about by the high prices that we see for fertilizer and potential concentrates going into the winter of 22-23 as a result of what is happening in Russia and or in Ukraine as such. So it's been brought in as a measure, I suppose, to help supplement farmers buy what is expensive fertilizer this year and to encourage them to grow sufficient feed. There's 56 million has been made available as part of sort of its national exchequer funded. And basically what they're saying is that, they'll support up to 10 hectares of either silage or hay, and they're going to pay €100 per hectare. So it's a maximum payment for dry stock farmers as such of €1,000 if you're able to claim the full 10 hectares.
Aidan, how can farmers apply?
Well, in terms of the application will be all done online. Catherine, you basically go into your Ag Food account, you select the tabs down along the left-hand side, and you go down to exceptional aid measures. And when you click on that tab, it'll take you and basically ask you which scheme do you want to enter. And you click on the Fodder Support Scheme. And within that, you'll see there's a number of questions that you can actually answer and tick, because as part of the scheme, they'll want to know the total forage area that you intend to cut. So, for example, a farmer might have 30 hectares of grassland on his farm, and they might decide that they're going to cut 15 hectares over the course of this summer. They'll can declare the 15 hectares. They'll only get paid on the 10. And equally, if you've only intend to cut, if you're cutting 12 hectares, again, you might want to claim on the 10. But equally, if somebody's only cutting 5 hectares, they may want to cut that twice, in which case you can select a 2-cut silage system and get paid up to the maximum of the 10 hectares. But it's important that you're fairly accurate with this, because you don't want to over-declare a position whereby you say that you're going to cut 8 hectares and you only end up cutting 4, because there's penalties associated with that, which are in the terms and conditions. But that's the type of level of question that you'll have to answer. And one of the prerequisites is that you have to have a 2022 basic payment application submitted. Because the department will be able to work on that, looking at the hectareages that you have available, and that's important. There's certain categories of farmers are ruled out. So if you've been seen to be producing milk on the 16th of May, you'll automatically be ruled out. If one of the parcels, for example, is in glass for the low input permanent pasture, again, that's not meant to be cut for forage as part of the glass scheme, so that would be an ineligible parcel, but the traditional hay meadows would actually qualify. So that'd be the main areas that you'd be concerned with there, Catherine.
Aidan, you mentioned that the maximum payment is €1,000. When should farmers expect to be paid this money?
Well, the application is open now, Catherine, until the 2nd of August. So you can go on online, either you yourself or if your advisor has been nominated to do it for you, they could go on. So you make your application. There is a facility to make a late application up to the 27th of August. But if you do that, you'll be penalised up to, if you went to the very last day, your payment will be deducted by about 18%. And that, but the other issue is that any of the forage that you're planning to cut must be cut before the 5th of September this year. And that's probably to facilitate the department to do a number of checks and to try and get you paid in late November, early December.
For listeners, Aidan, that want to get further information, where can they find these details?
Well, all the terms and conditions are actually up on, if you go onto your Ag Food account and go onto as I said, the exceptional aid measures and click on the Fodder Support Scheme, you can actually find all the terms and conditions and the frequently asked questions on that part of the department's website. The other option is that Teagasc Grange are putting on the Beef 2022 event on July 5th in Grange, which is a real good event for anybody in the beef sector to attend. And we will have a number of advisors on hand on the growing and finishing village that will be there to take your questions and hopefully steer you right with regards to the scheme.
That's great. Thanks very much, Aidan. John, you're very welcome. There's huge variation at the moment in grass growth across the country.
Yeah, that is the story of the day, Catherine. It's really revolving around rainfall. So if you take a situation in West Cork, the deep south of the country, you'll find that there's 6 or 7 inches of rainfall behind the long-term average, right? So that's having its own impact on growth. And realistically speaking, looking at the Teagasc centres in the south of the country, on average, we're 4.5 inches of rain behind normal, and that's leading to a level of soil moisture deficit that is affecting growth. On the other hand, then we better flip to northern parts of the country, Catherine, and while there's people in the south feeding silage because they're short of grass, there's people feeding silage in places like Donegal because they have too much rainfall and ground conditions are not good. So you have extremes. Okay, north is excess rainfall and ground conditions challenging, and the south it's lack of rainfall, soil moisture deficit, feeding silage because they're short of grass. So that means then, wherever you are, there's going to be, a different recommendation for grassland management at this time. If you're in the Midlands, you're probably in the best of both worlds. You have enough moisture to grow the right amount of grass, and at the same time be able to manage the grass quite well. But in other parts of the country, it's a very different ballgame. So variation is the order of the day, Catherine, yes.
For listeners that you've mentioned there in the south of the country that are experiencing drought at the moment, what advice have you for those?
Yeah, so if we deal with those who are kind of running short, really they're trying to hang on, Catherine, and you're trying to hold the rotation length, have enough grass ahead of the animals. For those who are really short, they have started feeding silage. They are prioritizing different animals on the farm to feed silage, prioritizing grass to the growing animals, or what we call the high reward animals. Some are grazing silage grounds that was cut earlier and grazing that now rather than making silage out of it. There is also the case that you can maybe offload some animals off the farm because cattle prices are reasonable. I suppose the main target animal that's been fed silage is the autumn calver because her demand wouldn't be that high for either quantity or quality. So there's a variation out there. And I suppose the most important thing is to assess your situation on the farm. Equally now, you have people who farm on heavy land in the south, and they're actually growing more grass than they require. So, for one person, it's challenging on dry land. For another person on heavy land, the story is quite the opposite. They probably have surplus grass. So, it's really an assessment at this point in time. And I suppose like all the predictions are for the end of this week for substantial amounts of rainfall. I accept that it's predicted, it is forecasted. It's a minimum inch of rain. So really, I think for most people, big decisions won't be made, I suppose, until the weekend and you see what rainfall comes or doesn't come. There has been rainfall promised in the past in the south, and it hasn't materialized to any great quantity, and has led people to have to take different actions than they would have expected. So I think for everybody at this stage, we're in the middle of the season. It's about half time in the grass growing season. It really is, an assessment of how you're doing. It's not a case of keeping your head in the sand. Get out, walk the farm, see what grass is coming, see what's happening on the farm. You'll be surprised. Some paddocks are growing better than others. Others are struggling in terms of growth. Others will struggle in terms of quality. Other paddocks will actually be doing quite well in both growth, of grass and the quality of grass ahead. So walk and assess really is the order of the day at the moment. Catherine, see what the rain brings, and then decisions will be made from there.
And how can farmers maintain grass quality at the moment, John, and in the coming weeks?
When you get to June and July, it's June is the, I suppose the main stemming season, and grass has a natural tendency to go reproductive, from late May, early June on. You hope that the stemming phase finishes towards the end of June and you get into quality grass then in July and August and building up grass for the autumn. However, in certain farms, for different reasons, either through weather patterns or maybe something went wrong with grazing, that the sward quality is not ideal. So then you have to take corrective action. However, if you're short of grass, like, bringing out a mower and a topper may make the situation worse rather than better. So you kind of have to assess where you're at. Where grass is in surplus, you can easily convert some of this surplus grass into bales. I know they're not the cheapest to make in the current circumstances, but they are quality feed relative to pit silage, generally speaking. For some, then it's about getting the animals into the right grass. If we talk in terms of kilograms of dry matter, that's 10 centimeters high or 14 or 1500 kilos, going into very strong grass, results in more stem, more dead material, and therefore a reduction in grass quality. Grass, the way it grows, generally most grass plants, they once they start to getting in, if you take the ryegrass plant, for example, once it gets into the fourth leaf, the first leaf dies. That's more dead material. Once the fourth leaf appears, you get more stem, and that's harder for the animal to graze, harder for the animal to clean out, harder for the animal to perform on. So it's really about going into the right grass. If you have enough grass, you can tackle the surplus either by putting it into bales or doing corrective management in terms of topping. If you're short of grass, you have to be way more judicial about what you do with a machine, because it may set you back. It's better to have some grass that's not the best quality in the world than having a small amount of quality grass. So again, Catherine's really about walking the farm, what's happening ahead of the animals, what's happening, the recovery of grass. If things are going well, you can make decisions to correct by giving, the best grass to the high reward animals or the growing animals, and maybe some of the poorer grass quality to the less productive animals, or animals that just don't need as high level of weight gain. So autumn calvers being the classic example. For some, it'll be taking grass out and putting it into bales. For others, it'll be just managing through the grass that they have and be glad to have it until the rain comes at the weekend, hopefully, and reassess the situation then, and then get correcting. It is fair to say, Catherine, at this point in time, we had problems with grass quality last year because of poor weather patterns in May, the opposite of this time around. But, we need to get the swards corrected heading into the autumn. Otherwise, we'll end up, having poor quality grass in the autumn, and that brings its own price in terms of weight gain on animals.
Most definitely, John. And you're involved in the Sustainable Grassland Village at Beef 2022 on the 5th of July. What can listeners expect to see on the day, particularly with regard to current conditions and drought that they're experiencing Grange at the moment?
Yeah, so like the eastern part of the country is struggling with moisture, as is the south. So we're doing a demonstration on grass in Grange in early July. And we'll try and deal with the challenges that are there at the time. If we're struggling with grass quality or grass quantity, we'll address those. Really, the demonstration's about trying to tackle what you have on the farm at the moment. What's the right grass to be going into? What's the corrective solutions where you don't have that in place? If you're in a deficit of grass, then there's discussion about the solutions to deal with that grass deficit on the farm where you're short of grass, where you target the best grass towards, where you would deal with a grass shortage either by maybe grazing some of the silage ground, doing other tricks or practices that will allow you to basically survive the troublesome period until that passes, and it will pass. It's just a matter of when.
Thanks, John. Great advice for farmers managing grass at the moment and in the coming weeks. And we look forward to visiting the Sustainable Grassland Village at Beef 2022 on the 5th of July.
Thanks, Catherine.
That's all for this week's episode. And my thanks to John and Aidan for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan and thanks for listening.